tax dollars in. Well, it's not sewers. It's festivals. Of course, they have to spend money on festivals in order to have festivals, I guess. And sewers and other infrastructure, roads, potholes, things like that, unless you're talking bike lanes, they're not interested. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we have to start with Donald Trump. This whole assassination attempt gets weirder by the day, weirder and weirder and weirder. And so there are people who are noticing all the weirdness. And I thought we should probably have a look at that. Brett Weinstein says our lack of factual information about this shooting, for example, how many shell casings were on the roof, is highly irregular. A cover-up would, by withholding basic facts, retain flexibility to avoid or explain away anomalies. We should demand a full accounting of the basics now. And we'll get to this other tweet in just a minute of Brett Weinstein's, because him and another guy are talking about the orientation of the stage, the orientation of the water tower, the orientation of the building, and the fact that there was a second-story window that had a direct line to the president, basically right below Crooks's position, and the water tower, which is actually appears to be a better angle for where Trump actually got hit. So it's all, again, bonker stuff. Donald Trump Jr. says, it's been exactly 1 week since the assassination attempt on my father's life. No one has been fired. No, she's not even, it's not even rumored anymore. That's deleted. I'm not going to talk about that. It was deleted. No answers to the obvious and ridiculous failures have been explained. No committees have been formed to investigate. The people below and tens of millions more want answers now. Remember Las Vegas, everyone? Do you remember Las Vegas? Do you remember when they locked down the whole world? And Canada just gave money to everybody because of liquidity, but they just handed money out. Here's money, here's money. It doesn't matter. Here's money. And again, no accountability. Safe and effective. They lied to us about the vaccine. We're going to lock you down, destroy your economy, and then we're going to inject this safe and effective vaccine that wasn't tested. But okay, never mind. Hand wave that away. Safe and effective. No accountability. Do you remember all that? Las Vegas. Do you remember that? No accountability. They're going to do the same thing. We're goldfish. We are goldfish. And who's mad about Las Vegas? I'm mad about Las Vegas, but there aren't legions of people. There are people who are more mad about 9/11 than Las Vegas. And I get that. I understand that. But it's very, very interesting that there's not even a lot of public pressure. It's really something else, right? We have been changed fundamentally at core, because I don't think the United States in 1955 would have tolerated this. Right? The people in the United States would have demanded better, I think. Little Palestine in Ohio, right? Just goldfish. We forget and we move on. Lahaina, goldfish, right? It's crazy town. Steve says, we're another news cycle or two away from the gunman in the Trump assassination attempt flew a prop plane over the event with a giant sign that read, "I'm going to kill Trump here in a few minutes." Jason says, so the 20-year-old sack of poo who shot Trump had drone surveillance at the Trump rally? The Secret Service, with a budget of $3.1 billion, did not make it make sense. Oh, I've got video. Remember the video that I referenced a few days ago that said, I wish I had video of the women who were Secret Service protecting Trump on the day because they look completely incompetent? I found the video. So I'm going to show that to you in just a minute. It's not too far away. So it's very, very funny. First, I want you to hear it from Trump that apparently the crowd was telling the Secret Service and police there's a guy on the roof with a gun before Trump even went on stage, and nobody told him. Here's the Waters interview.
We were monitoring this guy for an hour beforehand. Yeah. No one told you not to take the stage?
No, nobody mentioned it. Nobody said there was a problem. And I would have waited for 15. They could have said, let's wait for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 5 minutes, something. Nobody said, I think that was a mistake. How did somebody get on that roof? And why wasn't he reported? Because people saw that he was on the roof. I mean, you had Trumpers screaming. The woman in the red shirt, she was screaming, there's a man on the roof. And then other people said, there's a man on the roof who's got a gun. And that was quite a bit before I walked onto the stage. So you would have thought somebody would have done something about it.
Former President Trump saying,
you would have thought somebody would have done something about it. That seems, pretty bonkers. There was a time to stop him going on stage. And instead, nobody mentioned anything. Have fun, sir. Have a good show. Write the whole thing. Pretty crazy stuff. Colin Rugg says, Secret Service denied repeated requests from Trump's security detail for additional resources, specifically for more snipers. This was intentional. People should be in prison for this. Yet things for this, yet they get to keep their jobs as if nothing happened. Okay, so here's the video. This is Trump being pushed back into his car. I guess it's bulletproof, but like this is well after the danger at this point in time. But anyway, well, maybe, right? The other guy was probably climbing down from the water tower right now. Here's the Secret Service, crack Secret Service 1 and 2 right here. Okay, so Trump is here getting into the car. Okay, and these two are doing something. I don't know what they're doing. Nothing good. A crack team, right? A crack team of incompetence. It's unbelievable. They just kind of, like one of them walked in a circle, kind of looked like she was dancing, like more than doing any kind of protective detail. BC Perspective says, holy cow, the conspiracy to assassinate Donald Trump is being forensically dismantled in real time. The perpetrators cannot hide. We all know a second shooter immediately impacts the US Secret Service, FBI, and others. What are we prepared to do when the truth comes out? Unfortunately, I feel like we're not prepared to do what is necessary to restore self-governance and freedom to the West. Here is Dark Horse and Brett Weinstein and this other guy. I don't know who this guy is, but they're talking about this. And so when I'm talking about Donald Trump and this whole thing, I wasn't sure of the orientation of the stage. It's not really clear which way the stage is oriented. I seen on some schematics where the stage was, but it was more blocky than detailed. It didn't have the way the direction was done. Like the stage was just a square on the plan, but it wasn't like it's got a little angle to it, right? And the Jumbotron relative to the stage, I didn't see where the location of the Jumbotron Trump was referring to during his, looking at the chart that saved his life. So here's Brett Weinstein and this other guy talking about this. And it's very, very interesting, the points that they make. Here we go.
Take a look at that chart. Take a look at the arrow on the bottom. See the big red arrow, right?
This is at the shooting.
That's what I left on.
What is he gesturing at and glancing?
He's pointing at the Jumbotron.
He's pointing at the Jumbotron, and he keeps glancing at the
Bottom. See the
Jumbotron.
big red?
He's glancing at the Jumbotron. He's pointing at it. He's glancing at it. All right? It's important that you remember this and this angle. If, in fact, he is glancing at that Jumbotron at the moment he is shot, there is no way that Crooks hits him in the right ear. Crooks would have hit him in the left side of the head. If he's glancing at the Jumbotron, Crooks hits him in the left temple, and the president is dead.
Yep, I see it.
If he's looking at the Jumbotron, what is directly behind the Jumbotron? The top of the water tower. Him in the left temple, and the president.
Jumbotron, water tower. See the Jumbotron's here? Water tower. Trump's referencing the Jumbotron, turns his head to reference the water tower, Jumbotron, and the guy shooting Trump missed. And the patsy, done. You're done, buddy. You're done. Right? How did he get on the roof? He got on the roof by a ladder. Like, because he's the patsy. Holy smoke, right?
And is dead.
Yep, I see it.
Sorry, I'll just fast forward to the end.
This gets very awkward because we've got footage that shows something shadowy moving around potentially on top of the water tower.
Right. So, we're so close. Oh, we can taste it. Oh, man, he got away again, right? That slippery Carmen Sandiego. Benny says Donald Trump on Kamala Harris. So he's out doing his rallies. I can't tell if he's got a bandage on his ear still. He seems polished and in good spirits. Also, it didn't seem like it was painful for him to talk about what was going on. No, they didn't mention anything. I just went right out on stage. Everything's fine. No painful there. Right? It wasn't painful for him to talk about. I don't know. I don't understand. I'm never going to tell this speech again. Here we go. Wow, it's probably to make it special. Anyway, here we go.
From the moment we take back the White House from crooked Joe Biden and Kamala, I call her Laughing Kamala. You ever watch her laugh? She's crazy. You know, you can tell a lot by her laugh. No, she's crazy. She's nuts. She's not as crazy as Nancy Pelosi. Crazy Nancy. Did you see Nancy Pelosi is selling out Biden now? Did you see? She turned
No bandage. No bandage on the ear.
on him like a dog. Well, I don't know if he should continue. All of a sudden, where did that come from? She was 100%. All of a sudden, she's not sure. Not sure means he's gone. But no, she's crazy as a bedbug. She's a crazy. From the
Crazy as a bedbug? All right. Good one. Here's air traffic control praying over Trump Force One as they leave. I don't know where they were leaving from. Here we go.
7 Alpha Foxtrot. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Trump Force One, contact departure. Trump Force One to departure. Thank you for that, sir.
There you go. So very popular. Again, politicians don't often get love like this. It's notable, and that's why I'm highlighting it, because look at what's happening, right? Look at how they're responding. The Americans are responding to this. If you go and listen to this, you'll understand how both sides are controlled. But people love it. People love Trump. People love him, and they want him to be successful. And again, I don't know. Is he fighting the Tavistock-controlled Committee of 300, the deep state? Is he fighting them, or is he being placed by them? Either one is completely believable to me. We'll have to see what happens after. If he makes it to 2024 and gets elected, we'll have to see what his behavior is like. If he behaves like 2020 Trump, then, like 2016 Trump, just as if everything's, just fine and all we have to do is play the game better, then we have not learned anything. So we'll see. We'll find out, maybe, right? But here's Trump again, and this is him endearing himself to the population. He's talking about how his hair looks like a comb over, and I just think it's funny. Here we go.
I have to just interject. If you would turn off those cameras, because I don't want this. See the screen up there of me? That's very severe, that comb over. That's a severe sucker. What's with that one? It looks okay from the other side. But that is very severe. I apologize. Man, I looked up there. I said, whoa. Look at that. Wow. That's like a work of art.
Look at that comb over, right? So, people like it. Trump at his rally last week, I took a bullet for democracy. Here he's talking about the rhetoric thrown at him. I think it's funny that he says, what have I done for democracy?
They keep saying, he's a threat to democracy. I'm saying, what the hell did I do for democracy? Last week, I took a bullet for democracy. What did I do against democracy? Crazy.
It's crazy. He's looking older. He's looking tired in his face. It's flashes of it, Ian says, apparently leaked memos show that J.D. Vance is so hardcore against wokeness that he froze dozens of ambassadors' nominations over their views on gender transition and DEI. Incredible. To do this, Vance asked prospective ambassadors if they'd increase the number of gender-neutral bathrooms at embassies, boost resources for gender and transitions, and raise the Pride Progress flag or celebrate Pride in general. And if they said yes, they'd be rejected. Based. He made himself the single biggest obstacle to confirming career ambassadors in the Senate, according to the State Department. J.D. Vance is the future of sane America, maybe. The Washington Post didn't have to sell J.D. Vance to me like this. I already liked him before they got these leaked memos showing how truly based he is. So this is supposed to be a hit piece, and obviously it plays well on the right if that's what you're doing to make sure that woke nonsense, woke communism, because it's not a new mind virus. Communism is as old as the friggin' hills. Okay, they instituted it a bunch of different times, and they killed a whole bunch of people every time they did it. So and we're reliving the same thing. We're programmed. This is the same work of art thing. We're programmed to respond, and they know how we'll respond, and so they play on those responses. Right? It's incredible. And again, that's contained in the Committee of 300 book. If you're interested in learning more about what pattern, what blueprint they're running that plan. That's it. Bank of Canada, let's talk about taxes, waste of money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're being robbed right now, every single day. And all of the politicians seem to be in on it because they're getting paid to rob us on behalf of the global cabal that's just raking in the cash, right? We're allowed to produce only because they can tax our production. You see? Bank of Canada announces increase to the dealer and round limits for overnight repo operations. Oh man, what does that mean? I'm not a financial guy. I don't know what that means. I'll tell you. I found out what it means. Red Pill Rick says in Canada, nearly 80% of settlement balances are held by 3 banks, and they're not lending it to the rest who only have collateral. Okay, so 80% of the settlement balances are held by 3 banks, and they don't want to lend it out. Why not, right? This is why the Bank of Canada is intervening in the overnight repo market. These other banks need cash fast. Okay, so this was as of July 15th, right? So this is in play and has been in play for like a week. Right? So July 12th, they're like, oh, we need money. Click, 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 click. Here's a couple of billion more money, right? So there you go. Printing money to make sure that our banks don't collapse. And why don't the other big banks want to lend their money out to these smaller banks? The big banks have money, right? Like this is how fractional reserve banking works. If somebody wants money, then you get the money and you just sell some assets, right? Like if you have a stock that's worth a couple $1 trillion, you sell a little bit of that stock and you give us our money, right? There's the rub, right? This begs the question why the banks with the cash aren't willing to lend it if the other banks are putting up their collateral. Hint, probably because their collateral, so the bonds and things that they'd put up to get the money, is viewed as dog shit. Uh-oh. You mean that the $1 trillion thing that they are valuing is $1 trillion on their books, and they say that, yes, we've got liquidity because look at this $1 trillion thing that we've got on our books is all crap and they can't sell it for $1 trillion? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, probably. I think so. This is exactly what happened to Lehman Brothers in the GFC. They didn't have adequate collateral to support any loans forcing a bankruptcy. So Lehman went under like overnight and like shit shocked everybody, right? Kind of, sort of, because they thought they were going to get bailed out and then they didn't. And I mean, they papered over it, right? They papered over it pretty well. Print money, print money, print money. But it seems like there's cracks. It seems like you've gone downstairs and somebody said, did you know there's a crack in your foundation? And then you're like, oh, yeah, but it's little, right? And they're like, oh, maybe you should go look at it. And you go downstairs and it's now all of a sudden like you can see the ground through the crack and you're like, ooh, that might leak, right? Like, I hope it doesn't rain. So it feels like there's a crack and it feels like we should respond to that or something. But again, any response is going to be insufficient because we are currently engaged in a conflict, and the conflict is meant to bleed us dry, to bankrupt us, to throw us into chaos so we can be rescued by the IMF, which is, again, if you want to understand it all, go back to the Committee of 300. Really, I think it's probably a pretty honest overtelling of what's going on because they really like to just throw it in your face because they've dumbed the population down to the degree where most people can't read a book that's 600 pages, right? Like, and that one's not even 600 pages. So Riley says, RBC economists, the only reason Canada is not in a recession is a wave of new consumers arriving from abroad. Today's total GDP is growing, but GDP per person is falling. It's a Ponzi scheme. So I've told you before that Canada can't turn off immigration because that will crash our economy, period. And so they keep bringing people in because that's the only way to keep this whole thing going. We keep bringing in new people to the Ponzi scheme and then everybody's happy because your money's still working for you, right? You're still going to be rich. We're still on track for everybody to be a millionaire by, the next 10 years or something like that. Except that for everybody to be a millionaire, it's you pay your taxes and live your life of, regular everyday kind of normal stuff. But it's fundamentally slave labor, right? Wage slavery. That's what I'm trying to say. Not slave labor. Wage slavery, right? You're a slave to your wage. You're a slave to that job. You're a slave to this 9 to 5, this calendar structure, this whole societal programming that we've all been subjected to. And again, like it's so insidious that we can't even see it, right? We kind of like it actually. Well, I get to watch my TV and I get to drink my beer and blah 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 blah. We kind of like it, but because we don't know the alternative, we don't know how good the alternative could be or is, right? So anyway, we're in that Ponzi scheme and we really don't want out, and it's really painful. Like when you find out the Ponzi scheme is a Ponzi scheme and you're like, I'm in for $1 million on this thing, right? Well, that $1 million doesn't exist, buddy, because you got robbed, right? So the sooner you pull that band-aid off, probably the better, right? Probably the better. Bruce is talking about the equalization payments. Like Alberta's one of the richest provinces, and they're like, you're so rich that the quality of life is better there than here, so we should probably take all your money. And Alberta said, I guess so. Scott Moe says the Premier of British Columbia has now joined Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Newfoundland in calling for a fair equalization formula. Here's a reminder of how much each province will receive or not receive in the case of BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan in 2024. So BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan receive no money. They get to give money to Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, and the rest of the eastern provinces, right? So Quebec gets $13.3 billion. And Bruce says Quebec gets to hide their hydro revenue from the formula. On paper, that's around $14 billion, which means if not hidden, Quebec would be paying into the system, right? Oh, that doesn't count, Quebec. Yeah, you guys are totally disaffected. Totally the worst province, poorest province in Canada. Yep, definitely, 100%. Nobody should question that. Maxime Bernier weighs in, and he's responding to Danielle Smith. Smith says, British Columbia has joined Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Newfoundland and Labrador in opposition of Canada's unfair equalization formula that punishes Western provinces. The equalization formula is fundamentally broken, and it's time we all came together to fix it. Maxime Bernier says the PPC is the only federal party committed to reforming equalization formula and reducing the amounts transferred so that it's fair to all provinces. One of the things that Bernier, the arguments he makes is welfare makes you lazy, right? If you get welfare, say $50, and then you work and then you make $50, all that happens is now you work for that $50 you previously got for free. Now, if you start working more, and now you make $100, now you make $200 and $400 and a whole bunch more, right? You're way better off than you were with welfare. But if you stop at that 50, you're working like a sucker, right? And so like, you have to make it so that the provinces develop their own wealth over and above the welfare they were getting previously in order to make sure that this works. You unleash the provinces to create their wealth. And like that's a cornerstone of the whole thing with a view to winding down the equalization payments completely, and each province gets to keep their wealth, etc. Right? Like everybody's got this wonderful standard of living, and now it seems like they want us to live in tiny homes. Guelph, the only thing the mayor of Guelph wants to talk about is tiny homes. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. People don't want tiny homes. I don't want to live in a tiny home. I want people to have the option of a 3-bedroom, 1,200 square foot with an unfinished basement that they can finish if they want to, with a garage that's optional, because I grew up with no garage, and I was always jealous of my friends with garages. But people should have like a home, not a freaking box to grow up in. Like seriously. And people who grew up in apartments, I'm not trying to denigrate that. Like I had friends who grew up in apartments, and I was jealous of them because they had pools. Like we'd go to my buddy's house who lived in an apartment, and I thought the elevator was cool, and I thought the swimming pool was cool. But he told me later on he didn't like living in the apartment. So whatever. They got a house eventually, like they moved out of the apartment and blah, blah, blah. But like there are people who live in apartments, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's better if people who live in apartments have an option, or if they outgrow the apartment, like one kid fits, 2 kids a little bit more difficult. And so moving out, that's better, right? That's better than not having that, or that's better than saying, well, the apartment's good enough, right? No, I think Canadians deserve the option. I think they should, and they should be afforded that choice. And I think that our government should make that happen. And we used to, and we don't anymore because of globalist a-holes who run everything and are pushing for degrowth. And that's net zero. And again, I'll reference this book because you should read it. City of Toronto says, screw the flood we just had, screw the potholes that are plaguing the city, screw the terrible, awful everything that Toronto has become. You know what we really need? More festivals. That'll fix it, right? Bread and circuses, folks. City News is reporting the city of Toronto is coming to the financial aid of festivals and special events that have struggled due to rising operation costs. No, we shouldn't be spending taxpayer dollars on this. Sorry, they should fail, and they should fail. That's that. If they can't make their money, then they should fail, right? And I have a sneaking suspicion that maybe the board of directors and the number of staff has grown at a pace that is keeping pace with how much funding they're getting, right? And oh my gosh, we just can't operate because the funding's run out and just there's no staff to run it. Oh no, shucks darn, maybe get some volunteers. I don't know, but it's not something that taxpayers should do. If you want to do a Toronto festival, if you want to do something that's celebrating everybody and celebrating, everyone in the city, fine, sure. But if you're trying to push this nonsense of diversity as our strength, bullshit. If you're trying to push little, very, very, very niche festivals and things like that, like the Palestinian festival or the whatever festival, right? That's bad. We shouldn't be doing that. The mayor of Guelph spent $100,000 on businesses downtown Guelph so they could have patios on the street during COVID. Nobody else got that subsidy, right? Like, so why are these festivals that are for niche people rather than festivals for the whole city getting all of this subsidy? No, I don't think so. It's a terrible precedent, and we shouldn't be accepting of all of this. It's bad policy. Franco Tetrazzino is talking about BlogTO. I thought this was funny. I don't have a broader CO2 tab. This would have normally gone in the CO2 tab, but this is kind of tax related, etc. But BlogTO is citing a new report. They say new report says that Canadian carbon tax did not cause the hike in gas taxes or gas prices or inflation. So phew. Right? Oh my gosh. Here I was thinking that it was the carbon tax. I wonder what it was. Nothing. It was nothing. Just, global pressures, I guess. Sure. Right? Unbelievable. These people are so craven. These people are liars and they're cowards, and they will do everything and anything to misdirect. And that misdirection, these reports, et cetera, is part and parcel of confounding the population. So we're paralyzed with indecision. And if nobody makes a decision, nothing happens, and the globalists are free to continue to push forward with their plans in whichever way they deem fit, right? That's it. And here is Pierre Poilievre.
Welcome to the next.
He's talking about, this is an 8-minute discussion on cut through the BS, he says, or I call BS. And he talks about housing here. He talks about how building homes, how global pressures. So at 3:20 here, he talks about how global pressures are not the thing that's putting pressure on Canadian housing and Canadian affordability. That's the excuse being used by Justin Trudeau, et cetera, and this is the case being made by Mr. Poilievre that in fact it's not global pressures. He says housing is domestic as you can get. Like, we have lumber, we have labor, we have expertise. We make housing here, and we can't make enough housing to offset the immigration. And he does talk about the immigration at 5:20. But I'll show you this part here first.
Well, under Justin Trudeau, we are the worst in the G7 and the second worst of all 36 developed countries tracked by the OECD. Only Portugal did worse. Somehow, these supposedly global factors only affected Canada and Portugal. Really? No, not really. Housing is one of the least globally dependent things we buy. What goes into building a home? Land? We don't import land from the world. Lumber? We have plenty right here. Labor? Again, our workers are here in Canada. Housing is homemade, literally, and pun intended. The supply of it has nothing to do with the rest of the world. So no, it has nothing to do with the war in Ukraine. When Putin invaded Ukraine in 2014, housing costs did not skyrocket in Canada. Of course, Steven Harper was Prime Minister back then, not Justin Trudeau. In fact, home building was one of the few industries that did not get shut down during the pandemic. Home building was actually higher during the lockdowns than it was last year. And no, prices did not just go up because people were moving to bigger homes during COVID. Rent on one-bedrooms spiked, and prices of small condos have risen too. Something that...
So then 5 minutes in, he starts talking about immigration and the number of people, et cetera, et cetera. So at least he's addressing that. Here's how he talks about that.
The number of people and the amount of money buying homes. Immigration and money supply are domestic decisions made by the federal government and cannot, therefore, be blamed on the rest of the world either. The Trudeau government ran massive deficits, doubled our national debt, which forced the Bank of Canada to create $700 billion of new cash that flooded financial and mortgage markets with easy credit that bid up homes. And there were more people bidding on those homes. Canada built one new home for every 5 new people last year. The worst housing deficit on record. And you don't need to take my word for it. The Trudeau government blames their own immigration policies for that.
I want to start off just by delineating between permanent residents and temporary ones. On the latter, is your government going to, even temporarily while the housing crisis is so acute, cap the number of international students and or temporary foreign workers?
Well, it's something we're going to look at in the first quarter, first half of this year, Vashi. That volume is disconcerting. It's really a system that has gotten out of control.
I don't think anybody needs a briefing note to understand that having more people in a housing market impacts the housing market.
Meanwhile, he pays local bureaucracies to block home building. We have the...
So, and now Justin Trudeau is adopting Poilievre's policies for encouraging home building by municipalities. So that's crazy, right? Also, going back to the Canadian carbon tax did not hike gas prices or inflation. Andy Lee says, is that the International Institute for Sustainable Development? Is that who wrote the report? Seems like they can't sustain their jobs without federal financing and taxpayer money. So they're getting $8 million, $2 million, $5.5 million, almost $5 million. And that's 22, 2017, 23, 2019. So they're getting lots and lots of money from the government. So all of everything seems like a mess, no matter where you look in Canada, and it seems to be expanding. And the accountability, evaporating, just gone. The further the mess expands, the less I can find any liberals to take responsibility for. Hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful